There's a quiet kind of hunger that creeps into your life. It doesn't always wear the face of alcohol or pills or gambling. Sometimes it hides in the glow of your phone screen. Sometimes it's the need to refresh your feed for the 10th time in a minute. Other times it's staying up for just one more episode. It looks harmless until you realize it isn't about joy anymore. It's about escape. The scary part is you don't even notice when the shift begins. You think you're chasing pleasure, but you're really running from emptiness. And the emptiness never tells you where it started. It just lingers, whispering for relief in whatever form you'll give it. Have you felt this too, the silent craving that doesn't let you rest, no matter how much you try to feed it? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, saw this pattern long before Instagram or Netflix existed. He wouldn't have started with detox programs or strict abstinence. He would have asked you something far more unsettling. Not what are you using, but what is your soul starving for? To Jung, addiction was never the disease itself. It was the symptom of something deeper, something profoundly human. Our modern world doesn't make it easy. We are dopamine deprived yet stimulus obsessed. The constant scroll, the endless pings, the small bursts of validation each promises relief, but leaves us emptier than before. Dopamine runs low, not only because of what we consume, but because of what we ignore within ourselves. Jung called this tragic pattern disconnection from the self. This isn't about your ego or your job or even your achievements. Jung spoke of the self, the deepest, most integrated version of who you are, the part of you connected to meaning, to purpose, to creativity. When you lose that connection, no substance, no relationship, no distraction will ever feel like enough. Addiction, Jung believed, was a thirst for wholeness disguised as escape. He once wrote, "Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism." What he meant was simple, yet piercing. The root is not the substance, it is the emptiness. That's why most treatments miss the point. They patch the behavior, but not the wound. They fix the surface, but ignore the cracked foundation that keeps bleeding underneath. This is where Jung's perspective becomes radical. He didn't want you merely sober. He wanted you whole. And that wholeness doesn't come from denial. It comes from integration, from facing the very parts of yourself you've hidden, rejected, or buried. The shadow. Those inner rooms you've locked away, believing they were dangerous, when in truth they hold the very key to your healing. The shadow is not evil. It is energy. It is the container for every feeling, desire, and truth you once decided was too much, too shameful, too unacceptable. And yet, until you face it, you will seek relief in places that can never fill you. That's why Jung said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." So the invitation is not to fight the craving, but to ask, what part of you is crying out through it? What have you silenced that longs to be heard? The addiction itself is a messenger, not to be shamed, not to be erased, but to be understood. And if that sounds overwhelming, remember you are not alone in this. Everyone carries a shadow. The courage is in meeting yours, because here's the truth. The shadow isn't just where your pain lives, it's also where your power lives. It holds the raw material for transformation. That's why Jung didn't see addiction as a moral failure. He saw it as a spiritual signal, a call to return inward. And the moment you stop seeing it as a flaw and start seeing it as a message, is the moment real healing begins. Most of us were taught to push certain feelings down: anger, sadness, jealousy, even longing. We were told those emotions were wrong, so we buried them. But what's buried doesn't disappear. It waits underground, pressing against the walls of your life, leaking out through habits, cravings, and patterns you don't fully understand. That's why what looks like addiction is often unhealed emotion. Think about it. Every time you reach for the scroll, the drink, the comfort, you're not reaching for the thing itself. You're reaching for a feeling, a spark of meaning, a reminder that you're enough, even if just for a moment. This is why the cycle repeats: emptiness, craving, escape, shame, emptiness again. It's not about weakness. It's about trying to survive with a need that never got met. But here's the shift. The craving isn't your enemy. It's your signal. Every pull toward distraction is a small flare from the unconscious, saying, there's something here you need to see. And if you start listening instead of fighting, everything changes. Because the cycle isn't just destruction, it's information. It's pointing you back to the very parts of yourself you abandoned. The shadow, then, isn't something to conquer. It's something to meet, to sit with, to listen to. The anger you never let out, the grief you never allowed, the need for love you pretended you didn't have, these are not monsters. They're neglected children at the edge of your soul, waiting for you to finally notice them. And when you do, the need to escape begins to soften. Healing starts with awareness, with asking, what am I really running from? Not as punishment, but as curiosity. When you make space for the feeling under the craving loses its grip. Because at its core, it was never about the substance, the feed, the binge. It was about the wound. And wounds don't need shame. They need presence. They need you. So how do you begin? One way is shadow work, the simple but powerful act of bringing the hidden into the light. Start with journaling. Ask yourself, if my craving had a voice, what would it say to me? Write without censoring, without judgment. Let the truth spill out. You may be surprised by the answers. Sometimes the voice isn't dark at all. Sometimes it just wants to be heard. Another way is through the body. Your breath is more than oxygen. It's a bridge between the conscious and unconscious. When you breathe in steady, rhythmic patterns, you bypass the mind's defenses. Old emotions can rise. Tears, shaking, even laughter can come out of nowhere. It's not random, it's release. It's the energy that cravings once tried to bury, finally finding its way out. Even a single session of deep, conscious breathing can shift something inside you. Not because it fixes you, but because it reconnects you. You realize what you've been longing for wasn't the substance, the scroll, or the comfort. It was yourself, the part of you that's been waiting beneath the noise, asking for just one thing, your attention. And then there are rituals, not empty routines, but symbolic acts that speak directly to your soul. Light a candle and write a letter to the part of you that's addicted. Don't shame it. Don't scold it. Just ask, what do you need from me? Fold the letter, place it under the flame, and sit in silence. Sometimes the act itself is the message. You're finally listening. These practices are not about perfection. They're about connection. When you journal, breathe, or create ritual, you're sending a signal inward. I'm here. I see you. And slowly, the unconscious begins to respond. The cravings lose their sharpness. The emptiness feels less endless. Not because you've become someone new, but because you're finally becoming whole again. Now, let's talk about integration. It's not about going back to who you were before the cravings began. That version of you was already split, already disconnected. The goal isn't a return, it's a transformation. A journey towards truer, someone whole, who feels alive without needing to escape. Step 1. Create a life that feeds your soul, not just your schedule. Notice what drains you, what numbs you, what keeps you scrolling instead of living. Choose one small act every day that nourishes your inner self, a conversation, a creative outlet, a quiet moment of reflection. These aren't chores. They're acts of presence. Step 2. Replace stimulation with meaning. Don't just consume, create. Don't just scroll, pause. When a craving hits, ask yourself, what is it really asking for? Instead of reaching for distraction, reach for connection, for insight, for expression. Build rituals and routines that honor your inner life, not just your surface needs. Step 3. See relapse as a messenger, not a failure. Healing isn't linear. The unconscious doesn't move in straight lines. It spirals. If you fall back, it's not shame, it's information. It's a reminder there's more to notice, more to integrate. Each spiral takes you deeper, closer to the wholeness you've been seeking. Every act of awareness, every small practice, every moment of presence adds to your transformation. Your craving begins to lose its power, not because it disappears, but because you meet it with understanding instead of fear. You're learning to respond from the deeper self, not the reactive mind. This is subtle but profound. The shadow parts of you, the child, the rebel, the healer, the dreamer, aren't there waiting for your attention. When you start noticing them, you reclaim the energy you've been pouring into distractions. Your life begins to feel richer, more aligned with what truly matters. Liberation isn't about escaping, it's about coming home. And that's the real alchemy, turning what once broke you into the doorway for transformation. The craving, the compulsion, the restlessness, they're not enemies. They're guides pointing you to the neglected parts of your soul. When you follow their signal, when you answer the call, you step into a life that's yours in every sense. The process isn't quick, and it isn't perfect. You will stumble, you will feel doubt, but each step, each small choice is a declaration. I am here, I am listening, I am ready to meet myself. The courage lies not in avoiding discomfort, but in sitting with it, letting it speak, and allowing it to reshape you from the inside out. Imagine a life where craving doesn't control you, where emptiness becomes a teacher, not a jailer. A life where each choice reflects your inner truth. This is individuation, not self-improvement, not recovery, but reclamation. The lost parts of you, the shadow, the child, the dreamer, the seeker, are gathered and woven into a coherent, radiant whole. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every shadow, every craving, every quiet whisper of your unconscious is guiding you home. Step forward, connect, practice, heal, and remember, your real self is waiting, ready to be lived fully, deeply, and completely.